man.
He's right across the road from that. He wants to cut off like an acre.
We can't keep up
with his daughter.
Somebody's got to have some sorry news
It's gonna be the same
somewhere. Or higher. I'll take
Same thing.
I got one in February.
So,
Well, we hired one Wednesday,
Yeah, so-
we got the email yesterday.
Oh,
He was on the way home from his first day at work.
He was celebrating his job. We really can't hold that again.
He was proud to be here. He didn't need anything else to do.
Oh, you said there's an issue.
This one always acts.
Yeah. Because this is a paying job.
I'm way good. I don't know.
Teams of 4.
Yeah, more people shows up.
16 people didn't show up, huh?
yeah.
Y'all can move closer, we ain't gonna bite.
Morning,
Mine was
Somebody likes Steve Martin.
Yeah, mine was trying to send me a mobile payment under Canolis' name and said the Yeah, I know.
Ain't no space left back on the back road, Katie, you gotta come on
I
up.
got a text message myself.
No, but after I said, hey, this is Canolis.
Yeah.
She clerked her door.
You get some gift cards.
What's
the purpose of vote? Yeah.
That's all it is. I'm here to get a chance.
That's what you're coming for. I'll be there.
What I had to do. No.
This right here is 10%. That's all. Hey, brother, don't be.
I just need one comment on the background.
I don't think Frank's coming. I recall that email, and Brian is 10 minutes late.
Today,
Like they used to do it hanging.
This right here might work with that Ken, but in Madison County, when a husband and wife has one seat in between, that's marital fraud. Y'all be
It's usually across the road.
She's working. All right.
She did anything. Open the door. I opened the door, and I guess it went underneath the door. Behind it, I was just looking 2-hour door. It's open. I said, 2 hours.
We've been in Earl Shore, she's on vacation.
You start on this end,
Yesterday evening. And saw a
hang on, man.
And it's coming up all week.
What kind of, like, additions or new homes?
New homes, additions, manufactured homes, mobile barns, swing poles.
Or you think that the permit fee would make that more often?
Oh, yeah.
The
I mean, people are, I'm already on my.
Is that for all?
I saw it in the paper.
No comment.
Gosh, now, I don't keep up with that end of it, but I think we.
Well, I'll let y'all know. Racing tires are biodegradable, and there's no wiring. There's nothing left for them. Part of that was a scratch.
Everybody's AR.
That might have been. There ain't no wiring.
Work for GRC.
We do have a, our landfill is open back up now. We does have a mobile ground.
4 acres.
Now,
That's the acre field out front.
Yeah.
That's a lot of land.
It is.
Yeah.
It
You really look at it on the ground, laying it out.
We talked about that little pile we got over at the transfer station, both of them, you know, it's probably gonna get lit. I didn't know mobile grinders is that.
What's R1 now?
If they can choke fuel, probably $500 an hour. If they choke it.
Based on that little pile there, the
Really the only mobile grinder. Jenny Paterno is the one that does, wants to do asphalt.
People can do signals because if we get all one,
Sit there and spend $500 an hour
on their subdivision, 40 acres, I want to do R1, you got $25 an hour. Same zoning.
She'll sell us $quality litigation dollars a load.
Well, now, the guy at Island, his intent is, he already got, he's gonna take his stuff to.
4 acres is.
That's the, but I'll tell you, on that little pile beside the transfer station, the chief made it.
Let me ask you, first of all, speaking now, this question about tires, I've wondered this for decades now.
They would end up being a lot of time.
A bunch of old
So the small.
But you can't cut
Most of them now don't pay the $3 fee.
Oh, okay.
You gotta stick
So they just go for the body tires.
Or you can do the thing with their
That's why
standing
they're R1.
fireplaces, like an old 106 coming in. And then what they do is take them, they put them in the van, and then once about every month, they ride around in Madison County, throwing them out at night.
That's actually a true statement.
True statement.
I mean, I can take and show you the bank.
Yeah.
This is a good example, like you can literally, once a month, go and pick up 89 tires, which will buy 2 places.
I tried to get start filling it up.
Real estate guy in the, thing that they're under cover at night, you just find them all in the
Somebody
spot.
called me today.
Yeah. We have a tire amnesty.
I got to tell you before we go back. I got to tell about that, but they possibly won't.
Which they would do.
Well, one of them's gotta be torn down, upon the final inspection.
Because then you get like,
I'd like to welcome everybody to the Madison County Board of Commissioners Special Call Meeting Agenda, September 15th, 2023, at 3 p.m. Statements or remarks from citizens on the agenda. I'm sure some of you probably want to know why we're here. Or does anybody? Cool. Even better. All right. Discuss the process of partial divisions through multiple departments. Item number 3.
So in the commissioner's packet, and Lacey and Christopher's packet, the first little section is paperwork from the zoning office. This is a records of plat. When you come in, it's a form that they'll fill out when they get ready to divide property. I'm sure Mr. Harvin and Ms. Harvin is familiar with this when they record deeds or plat surveys in the courthouse. There's also a zoning application and then a checklist that the zoning office staff use on how they process the application, and then after the BOC votes, what they do, those steps. There's also a paperclip of information from the property valuation office. It goes into depth with CUBA, taxation, finance, those requirements, state laws. So for today, we're going to use two pieces of property that the commissioners are familiar with. One is off of C.O. Draper Road, and then the other one is off of Seagraves Road. So I had requested Lacey to put together the timeline that the board has. She got all the timeline, the plats, the deeds. She put all this together for us. So that way, as we walk through the process, we'll all have something to see. And all this information I'm going to pull up on the screen for you too. So the board, all of you are aware of the county and how fast it's growing and how it's developing. And we're all aware of Madison County is an agricultural county, and we're trying to preserve ag as much as we can. So we did a moratorium last year, and what we're finding out is people are buying property and they're doing 3 to 4 splits and creating a private drive, and they're circumventing regulations and ordinances to how they need to develop property. So that's what these two examples are. One is going to be pretty cut forward and straight and clean, and the other one is more complicated. So in this conversation, I was talking to Lacey and Todd about this. When we read through this timeline, there's going to be some aha moments of that's what went wrong or that's who did something wrong. So I just want everybody to be mindful that today we're acknowledging those mistakes and moving forward to correct them. Christopher, do you want to start with how the...
Before you start, I thought I had my pocket. I got a couple questions just to get us to add to what you said. The first paper clip, the recording of plat and lot combination division request, and this is in Christopher's office, correct? When did we come? I know we revised this. How long ago was it that we revised this?
Last year.
March or February. Well, we created it and then we revised it early this year. I can't remember if it's February or March. And then the revised copy is what went out. We made some copies for property valuation, the tax commissioner's office, and planning and zoning office as well.
All right. That's good. I mean, I just wanted the board to know what timeline we were looking at for this. Make sure it wasn't 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 8 years ago.
Started a year ago. We tweaked it with some of the parcels that were getting divided or even recombinations, and I think that was the last one. We were looking at divisions, but not the recombinations and how they may affect CUBA. So we just improved it earlier this year.
So the reason that each of you are here today is due to the questions and trying to find some resolve in a lot of stopgap problems. It's just like
loopholes.
The loopholes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know y'all like to sit in the back because you're Baptist, but you probably can't see the screen. You may need to move forward, but what I want to ask you to do is to help us read that from the back and say, you know what, y'all need to add a line right here that says this, or that line is not needed. We're asking your input as to how to make this thing flow freely through P&Z, through the assessor's office, through Lamar's office, through our office, through this board. Because we're not 100% sure that we got this correct. Y'all may see, Katie may see something, or Robin, or Lamar, or P&Z, or even Gary Harvin, because this is what he does for a living, may see something that we need to add, delete, whatever. But that's the point of this meeting, is why you guys are here. And this is for input from y'all to help us devise a smooth plan. All right. With that being said now, yes, I see you raising your hand. Go ahead.
Do you want me to go ahead and just kind of say a little tidbit, or do you just want me to wait until kind of when you asked about what my department's role is. I'm talking about like this paper right here.
So you have something to add on this piece of paper?
I don't have anything to add on to it, but as far as if somebody wants to divide a property, they don't necessarily have to go through planning and zoning to do that. They can go to an attorney, they can have a new deed drawn up, and as long as it meets the Georgia legislation, the filing requirement to file a new deed in the office, we have to accept it. So that's how they're going about doing it. And there's nothing that our office can do to reject that if it meets the state filing requirements. So they don't have to start at planning and zoning. They don't have to have Mr. Harbin to survey their property. They can pay another surveyor to do it. And you don't have to have a survey to file a deed. Like, the survey just shows the property boundaries. The deed is what shows ownership of the property. So, I mean, you can have a plat from 1956 and you can divide the property however you want it in 2023, and that plat is not going to matter.
Can I just add to that? That's like saying you don't have to have money in the bank to get some out. That's true, but it's illegal.
Well, that's the state requirement. And
no, I know. I mean, for you, from your
yeah.
perspective, and that's right. But if someone divides property without going through getting planning and zoning approval just by bypassing it with a deed, that's an absolute clear violation of the zoning ordinance. That's an illegal lot. It should not be issued building permits or any other permits, and it should be prosecuted as a zoning violation.
That would be on the county level, though.
That'd be on us, not Katie.
Right.
As me and Katie was speaking about this, they can record the deed however they want, but that's the only thing they can do. If they try to move forward for any other purpose, that's when the stopgap comes in and says, aha.
That's when it comes to planning and zoning, and that's when it's realized that, hey, this has been split without approval from planning and zoning or whatever. So it's not just negligence on our part of not following the moratorium or not doing what the county is asking us to do, but it's us following the state guidelines, doing what we're supposed to do as far as the filing requirements.
Katie, I don't think that's the issue here. What in our minds we're looking to do is provide some documented way that a person who wants to do this, and forgive me, Mike, but an attorney are the people that manipulate the system. You know, the developers in there, he goes to an attorney and they look for ways to manipulate the system to make it work outside of what the boundaries are.
Right.
And that's what's got us in this situation where we're going to talk about some specifics here shortly, is administratively we need some way to track this from source to source. If someone brings a plat to you and says, you know, I've divided this up into, this was a plat that of one large parcel, we're dividing it up into 3 parcels, here's the deed, here's my surveyor. We want to, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but we want a means that you guys can look and say, okay, we'll be glad to do that, but you have a XXXXX. You need to go down the hall first.
Now, as far as the plat, it has to have a Tracy's signature on it before we accept that, but not a retracement. If it's a retracement, it is not.
That's a state law,
required.
so if it's a retracement, we don't have to, and are y'all having issues with people trying to record splits as retracements? Is that what's going on?
Sometimes.
Oh.
And, I mean, we have to accept it because it's.
It says, like, the surveyor certified that's retracement, even though he knows he's dividing property. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, that is the core of this whole conversation.
I mean, I've had people approach us that ask, you know, we're under moratorium, what do we do? I said, well, you can always write a deed, but it doesn't mean that you can get a building permit.
Right.
You know, you can do whatever you want to if it's for tax purposes, if it's for this purpose, if it's for that purpose, but it's not going to get you a legal conforming lot. And most attorneys will not close a deal if there's money being transacted unless it's a legal buildable lot. Otherwise, whoever's holding the notes, they're belly up. So
But see, a lot of times too, it's somebody that this land's been in the family for a long time, and they want to give X amount of land to its grandkids, and so they'll split the property that way, but then they never have it resurveyed, or if they have it surveyed as a retracement, then it still filters through until they go to get their zoning permit, because they may have not have split it to conform to the requirements of the bill. And that's kind of when it gets noticed by everyone else. But as far as that, I mean, the deeds are required to have a legal description of the property, but we can't reject it just because it doesn't meet. I mean, it does, if there is a plat, it references the plat, but we can't, I mean, we get 50 to 250 deeds a day, just depending on the day. Just, you know, it could be an affidavit or a new assignment of a security deed or a warranty deed, like just all kinds of different things. So we can't go back and pull all of the reference deeds to make sure, like, that this goes with this. Like, if it's a cancellation, we will go back and we'll mark that original deed canceled in our older books. But as far as, like, going back and retracing every single deed or any other cross-reference to that deed, that one deed could take 5 hours, depending on how many times it's transferred hands or whatever else. And we just don't have the manpower to do that. I mean, we would be behind 6 months for accepting deeds if we did that.
We're gonna cross that bridge in just a minute on what Lacey had to go through. I think it was 3 days.
Yeah.
I think, and it was like nonstop 3 days for one. I wanted you to state to the board also about the part of, I'm sorry, let's go just a second. The part about what Dennis is referring to, me and you spoke about this, is we could potentially, if they come in to file the deed, we can say, hey, we'll file it, but please check with planning and zoning. We can do that in a face-to-face. The problem is 90% of your deed is e-files. They're coming directly from an attorney somewhere to here, and we never see those.
Right.
To be able to advise them that, hey, there's another set of steps you need to go through. There lies the problem. I'm sorry, dear.
And I don't know if that's something that it's something that could be told to any closing attorneys, but the only issue with that is sometimes the closing attorneys are somewhere off base. Like, there's not really a way to kind of, from our perspective and filing a deed, to like put a stop to or get a better control of how it's done. Because, I mean, just like you could split off 10 acres of your land to your son or your grandkids, you could draw that deed up. If you looked up the legality of it and you knew what that deed had to have, what it needed to say, as long as it meets and is correct and pertains to the filing requirements, we would have to accept it. And you could do it yourself. You wouldn't even have to go through an attorney. And some people are doing that. And that's just that's just, some people know how to do that stuff, and again, some people would rather go to an attorney. We always advise them if they come in the office to ask, hey, I want to put my daughter's name on my deed, or I want to transfer this property to my son-in-law and my daughter, because I don't know how much time I have left. We always tell them, we can give you a copy of your deed. If you know how to do it, if you want to look that up, you can do it yourself, but we always advise them it's best if they seek legal advice, just because we don't want to point them in the wrong direction of they might not have something correct, and then they get mad and we have to reject it for some reason that it doesn't have all the things it needs to have.
I want to be clear. I want to be clear and very specific.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to beat up on anybody, but terminology matters. And the way I say that is, you know, if Brian wants to cut off 10 acres, whether it's a conforming lot or not, the actual split of property, he can file a deed that shows his intent, and it may actually transfer a percentage of ownership, but it did not create a new parcel unless it meets, there's not a new tax ID number for that individual lot to be subdivided that moves a property line or creates a new one unless it meets the local ordinances. I understand that your office is not creating, or, you're not checking all that
We
kind of
don't
stuff.
assign that new.
Yeah, and I'm not saying people hadn't tried to trick, do something wrong. But for those that do stuff right, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is there should be, and I don't think legally, that they can create a new lot without complying. And if we've got a hole in our ordinance, then we need to fix that. But there's, in my mind, that the ownership question, I got 4 kids, I'm gonna divide it up, this is my intent. I can put that in the deed, I can put that in the will, and you can own that, a percentage of that parent tract, but to create a new property line.
New tax parcel.
And see, that's the thing, like, we don't know, because we can't pull everything to see.
They would have to retrace all those meets and bounds that are coming through.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they should,
Right.
I mean, you have to accept that,
We
do meet the
have to.
Plat Act, it's not hard,
Right.
it's.
But I think what you're saying is, like, if they're conveying 10 acres, basically, if they quit their claim to it, basically all you guys 100% interest in that piece of land, doesn't mean that it's a buildable lot. Doesn't mean that you can go pull a permit or
Right.
get a tax parcel assigned.
From a zoning terminology
Yeah.
standpoint, it's not a lot of record, because a lot of record has to be created legally,
Right.
which in our ordinance means it has to be created by plat.
We do have it very tight, and there's a lot of records on this, you might know how to improve it further, but when I look at it, for the division, it's clear, it's black and white.
Yeah, I thought, it was pretty clear before, but we rewrote it, so that was the January 23 amendment of section 4.7 to make it crystal clear that a plat, a approved plat, is the only way to combine or divide property in Madison County.
But,
Can I make one statement before we go any further? Just make sure everybody's comfortable here. We are not trying to point a finger of blame, or we're not trying to say that anybody is not doing their job, or is not doing it correctly. We just recognize we've gone through this process, we got some holes, and we need everybody helping us find them.
Right.
Fix it. So if anybody's defensive here, just relax. We're just trying to.
No, that's right.
Rob?
No, I guess I'm just a little confused, because if someone does convey property through a deed and it transfers ownership, even if it's a split, and it transfers that portion of that property to a new owner, when it comes to our office, we have to assign a parcel number to it, whether they have a plat or just a survey that calls out the meets and bounds on the deed.
Why?
We have to, because the law requires us to assign that new owner a parcel number so that it can be taxed. It has to be on the tax digest.
Why wouldn't it be taxed just like,
Because it won't be.
if I bought something with Brian,
If you bought part of Brian's property, it's not Brian's property any longer. Now it's your property. We have to put it in your name and assign a parcel number to it.
It can
So that it
still
can
be
taxed.
unbuildable or anything.
Yeah, it'd be unbuildable if it doesn't meet zoning requirements.
Yeah, if they want to convey title, once they convey title, then that person's responsible for the expense of the property.
all right, if we want to do that, and I was not going to say anything today, but this is, I've listened to this for 25 years now. If you want to do it that way, you're going to have your own set of tax maps, because they're not the zoning maps, and they're not.
And we don't use the zoning maps. We do have our own set of tax maps because the mapping comes from our office.
Because those are not legal lots of record. And we should not be looking at those maps to figure out what our legal lots of record are.
But even with them being on Q Public, if the general public says, hey, I want to buy this lot, it's on the market.
Yeah,
I mean, I know there's real estate, they could go back to them and sue them once they figure out it's not buildable and all that. But
I talked to other counties too. I mean,
I
think in a lot of counties, this is not how it works.
No,
I have never, ever, in 35 years in the tax assessor's office, seen a county that won't transfer property through a deed.
Yeah, but I think where we're headed right now is what we're looking to solve is someone either brings it to Katie's office, or they bring it to your office, or they may go to zoning and planning, or they may get a surveyor to go out there and redraw a deed, and it go to any of the three. but it never has to go collectively to everyone at one time, so that at the end of the day, the people sitting up here knows what's going on. You know, it's all of a sudden we get these, and I've got two out there where I'm at now that I'm not sure that they've got building permits because they're not building within sight of the road. And there's no building permit posted at the road.
I think that's gonna be the hard part for your office, because that's the one stopgap that you can't control. And that's the problem. So I'm thinking, we've only been in this 20 minutes, and I'm already hearing that maybe, I mean, seriously, I'm hearing good things because we're all have different perspectives. But right now, I'm hearing ACCG needs to look at this and say, hey, if we've got a problem at the state level, or if we got a problem with your maps versus the maps, or y'all maps you're using versus the maps we assume we're using, maybe we got to figure that out at the state level. But this can't be the only county that has this problem. Everybody's growing so fast, there's got to be questions raised from other people, right?
But you can do this in a neighboring
I'm gonna
county.
go back to
If you want.
I'm gonna argue with Robinson more.
Go ahead.
Because you know there shouldn't be splits without approved plat. You find, and your office runs the meets and bounds.
Right
You
now.
have to do that. Katie's office doesn't. That's not her job.
Yeah, if there's a split, then it should have a plat.
So if you find a deed that has created a split when you run the meets and bounds, and you don't find an approved plat to support it, why aren't you going to planning and zoning and saying, I think this is an illegal deed?
Well, now, I didn't say we were finding that, but now, if there is a split on a property, they would have to submit either a survey through the deed or a plat.
Well, just with legal description.
Yeah, a legal description that divides the property. We would have to have a legal description. We don't know how to divide the property if we don't have either a plat or a legal description.
You got meets and bounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Written description.
That's
You
right.
don't have an approved plat to match it.
That's right. But
So there's a good indication that, that's at least a potential illegal split.
I don't-
It wouldn't be illegal if Katie's
Yes,
office
it's illegal.
say it is legal.
It's a violation of our zoning ordinance. It's not, Katie has to report it. Katie can at least
It's
involve
at a
person.
county level, it's not the.
So really,
I got
you know, I don't know how you do this, but it's almost gotta be that when all these come in, they gotta be communicated to everybody, and everybody has to look at them. And at some level, at Katie's level, she may not ever see anything bad, but and I don't know if you got that many coming in, how we do that, but every one of them that came in, some communication should be to saying, this was sent in, this is what they're changing it to, and the zoning folks need to know about it, and Rob and them need to know about it, and they can look at it and see, does it violate anything on the county level?
Anytime that we get any kind of deed that transfers property from person to person, it has to have a PT 61, which shows the transfer.
Okay.
Lists the tax, lists where it's at, and all of that. We do take those monthly down to the tax assessor's office. If we need to take them weekly, we can take them weekly.
So they're going to the tax assessor's office now.
Planning and zoning, the tax assessors, and I don't know, there's several other offices that have free access to the GSCCCA, and they can go on daily and they can run their own list to see what was filed in our office if they wanted to. But we do communicate with each other. We do take them, anything that comes through that's transferring the property from one person to another person. Now, as far as how often, we've always taken them just at the end of every month. But if it would be helpful to take them at the end of every week, we could take them at the end of every week, or,
I don't know, that's what I'm just saying. So there's a process there, but, so we're not finding any of these issues once we, right? I guess I'm asking Robin.
well, now, I agree with Mike from what he said a minute ago. If somebody just draws up a deed and says, hey, I want to give my son 5 acres of land, and there's no legal description, well, there's nothing there for us to draw off 5 acres of his property.
but
Then we would say, yeah, you can't do
we
that.
wouldn't accept the deed.
Right. But now,
Yeah, well, just,
but then when Mike,
I
when you
draw
say,
a legal description in my sleep.
A lot of people will copy it.
Yeah, they will copy from an old legal description.
Adopt, yeah.
But if they're splitting the property, then just copying the legal description from an old deed won't work.
Right. Because it's gonna describe the original.
It'll describe, yeah, the meets and bounds from the original full parcel. They would have to have a survey or a plat.
So that sounds to me like the stopgap. So you took the first one in the blind. Let's say an attorney emails it to you. I emailed it from the attorney. I do a closing. My attorney emails it to you. At that point, you file it. The next step is it has to go to Robin.
Correct.
At that point, there's where we can make a lot of the corrections and require, wait a minute, you got it, you recorded it, but we're not gonna move forward until we get a plat.
Correct.
That's the initial stopgap, is Robin's office.
It could be there, or if we need to take them to planning and zoning so that, because they know also what the requirements would be, rather than wait for them to come in and decide, hey, I want to get a building permit. I mean, I don't know, because like I said, I don't know what their requirements are, because I don't have to do that, just like they don't know what our requirements are.
Well, it would seem to me, it would seem to me that planning and zoning would be the logical place for it to go, because we potentially could take a property that is non-conforming legally, which I personally just stumbled all over, right? You know, that's like an illegal immigrant. Either you're an immigrant or you're here illegally. You can't put the two together, you know. But it would seem to me that planning and zoning would be the logical place for this to go for the initial review, because potentially anytime a property is divided, that if it doesn't go to them first, we could take a parcel that is already illegally non-conforming and create two parcels that are legally non-conforming. Is that an accurate statement, Chris?
Not trying to sound like a lawyer, that is one possibility that's out there. But say it was 100 acres and they did 25 to the son, they recorded it, no plat, it'd still be in A1 so long as it had 150 foot of road frontage.
Regardless of whether it meets the current requirements.
Yes.
Yeah, but if it doesn't match the official map when they come and get a building permit, then Mr. Pruitt, is the lawyer not gonna advise these people that this is not a legal conforming lot? Is there not gonna be some type of?
Anybody let me know, but I don't sit here 24/7 looking at every piece of
That's what I'm saying though, like, I mean, the professional that prepares the document would advise the people, like, we can do this, but it's not legal.
So
let's go back.
Yeah, I want to go back and see what.
Let's go back.
I want to hear Mike again,
Okay.
because I'm not clear either.
All right, so number one, non-conforming. Non-conforming means that this lot does not meet our current zoning requirements. It may be lawful because that lot was created and before, under a version of our zoning requirements that's different than the current one, and it was lawfully created then. That's a lawful non-conforming lot. An unlawfully conforming lot is one that somebody somehow got through the system and got a deed or plat on record that violated the zoning ordinance at the time the property was divided. So there is a difference. Now, meets and bounds description, if you see a meets and bounds, that doesn't mean that it is or isn't a property split. If you've got a piece of property with two straight lines that can adjoin, I can run parallel lines and do a meets and bounds description because I passed high school geometry. That's easy. But I'm creating, probably, the reason I'm doing that is because I'm creating an unlawfully non-conforming lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
You're doing it nefariously. That's what I'm getting to, is that it's underhanded, what they're doing.
Yeah, but with that.
So how do we detect that?
That's right, that's what I was going to say. How is Katie supposed to know? Katie's not. Okay, Katie's not.
So where do we stop at? Is that going to zoning?
When they come to get a building permit.
When they come to get a building permit, or when the tax assessor's office starts on they start on January 1, going through all the deeds and plats that were recorded the prior year. because they have to do that for their purposes. So that's why I was saying, if you see a deed that's only in meets and bounds and does not reference a recorded plat, that's a red flag.
And generally, we don't have those, because when someone files a plat to separate property, Chris's office will send them to us to have us assign a parcel number to them before it's ever recorded with the clerk of court.
So it shouldn't be a problem.
So I see two paths. All right, one, somebody, we'll pick on Gary, they're just, you good. He has a client, wants to come in, does things right, he's gonna come see you, go through all the ducks in a row, whatnot, draw it up, sign it, send it back to you, you're gonna sign off on it, and it's gonna get filed.
After it, make sure it doesn't breach a coup.
It goes to the rounds.
Yes.
My preference would be it comes back to planning and zoning, y'all file. The filing fee that goes with it is just paid up.
Well, so we have to e-file, which is part of the case thing, yeah, so like we have the professional would end up recording and the lawyer. But yeah.
Thank you, though.
I do have some comments on that when we get back to
But
that.
it goes through the process, somewhere it is sign off all y'all, and it's done. Subject to property, recombination plat, whatever, I mean, it's got Chris's signature on it.
It's mine or.
Whoever, somebody in office.
Yes, sir.
All right, if Tom, Dick, and Harry e-file something, and it's just Will sold me his property, and I bought it, lock, stock, and barrel, and that's it, that's just it, that's done. Because it doesn't create a new parcel.
Correct, sir.
If we monkey things around and e-file something, and if it hits the taxes office, they say, well, this is dividing a current parcel, that should be a stop right there. I need to walk down and confirm that this is illegal, has something been changed? And if you say no, or your office says no, to me, there should not be another parcel ID created. Somebody needs to send somebody a letter saying this is illegal, an illegal lot filing. Come see us and let us know. Their intent may be good, may just not know how to do it, or they may not know our ordinance.
Yes.
And I'm sorry. And, I mean, that to me somehow puts a cap on somebody just doing something. Like I said, I can divide ownership of what I want. I got 100 acres. No, I don't. But I mean, if I had 100 acres and I wanted to divide it up between my two kids, and I just said split 50-50, I can draw a line straight down on the map and just say, here it is. But that doesn't legally.
They assume ownership, they just don't assume a legal
Now
conforming lot.
they own 50% of 100 acres, not individually 50 acres.
Tax, I'm not sure of that either.
From the tax point of view.
And I would only add one thing to what you said is that if there's, at least as of January of this year, and I think always, there's no such thing as a deed without a plat that creates a lawfully conforming lot, because even if it meets all the requirements, we still require a plat as well as a deed, just because it makes things easier to work with.
Just did one today. That's 55 acres. Where it did require a rezone, all it needed was a lawfully conforming split. It was more than 25 acres apiece coming off of 55, and all they needed was make sure the taxes were paid up on it, and a new tax number from Robin's office, and to make sure it wasn't.
But we're still going to require a plat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we're not going to recognize that lot for any purposes until we get the plat, as well as the deed.
Correct. That also gives us the time when it does come to us to where some people don't know it. They just had it split up, and they split 20 acres 8 ways. And they had no idea about the ordinance or anything like that. They just had 8 grandchildren, and we have to walk them through the process. Yeah, fair amount of guilt.
So currently besides the professional surveyor, engineer, whoever did a plat, whose other signatures are we requiring now to split property?
Mr. Tracy, do you want to speak on this? I don't want you to go like that. Theirs and ours. The only two that we require.
Who is theirs?
A licensed, sorry, a licensed surveyor.
I think, like with the form that we got, that they developed, I think it's a really good start. I think that just ask Tracy, I mean, like, we don't assign a case number to a plat here, like plat 1 or plat 2 or plat 3, like this is case 4. And then this would become, in most counties, would become a route sheet, essentially, where I would bring this route sheet back completed to Tracy, and Tracy will say, you've already been through all the processes. Some of them have a digital system route sheet. But, you know, I can't get that plat signed until every department has been satisfied. And most people are not splitting property unless they want a building permit. I haven't found many people that are just splitting property to be selling property or slinging property. It's 9 out of 10 times because they want to build a structure. So I do think that what Mike was saying is accurate, that when they come in for the building permits, when you nail them, because if they've transacted the property and a lawyer's prepared a deed that meets Katie's requirements, it's an official transaction, like the tax guys are saying. The county can't tell them to undo the transaction. They can just tell them you can't build on the lot.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. So, yeah, good question. We should be requiring a lot more signatures. Gary knows this better than I do, but normally you would have signatures on that plat from the health department.
Yes.
Who else?
So typically it would be health department, tax assessor,
Utilities.
utility. If we would get public water, we would have IDA sign off. I had somebody come to me the other day. It was for a building addition and asked me a question about it. And the septic deal here is not as intense as it is in other counties. I mean, are these lots even perkable to build a structure on? And that, you know, that's state protections, I guess, because they're saying, you know, we're going to review this to make sure it's a buildable lot before you convey it to somebody as a non. But I've also worked on plenty of lots where they don't perk because they met under old percolation requirements and stuff.
And where we don't have it on recording the plat, we have it on the permit side for getting the building permit. The first thing you have to do to procure a building permit is show me your letter from the health department. That's the first thing before you build a residence.
Yeah.
So forth and so on, but it's not on the plat. And then, just for reference, if somebody comes in and they have a deed that's stating anywhere from 93 till creation, we take a deed for a building permit because it's pre-exempted the planning and zoning January 1st, 1994. So we have to take that. There are very, very few of those left in our county tract that have.
Some of these regs before those, as I understand it. So, I mean, before I was here.
But that's the only time that we would take a deed without a plat. If it was a undisturbed parcel, or it was an old home site where they're remodeling, you know, the family farmhouse or anything, and nothing had changed. That deed just transferred names.
But if we went a modern zoning ordinance, which is another thing I would hope maybe the board would talk about today, is the RFQ I sent out to try to get that process started. I think a modern zoning ordinance is going to require all of these, or at least the UDC is going to require those departmental approvals.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you will, if you do it on the front end, you're not playing whack-a-mole trying to catch them at a later stage.
And that's where we're at.
A lot of what y'all are doing here are just minor subdivision plats. Let's say up to 5 lots or 5 splits be under the minor subdivision plat. If it's 5 splits and I'm going to create 5 lots, or whatever your minimum is, 4 lots, you'd have to go to the health department. That would be part of the process to get that MSP approved, was to meet the state requirements, right?
Yes.
I mean, you know, so what we're doing, like, let's say you bring me 100 acres and you tell me you want to cut off 25 and it's conforming to me, that's an exemption plat because it's exempt from the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
I'm just bringing that to you. It meets the requirements. I need you to sign it. It's a raw piece of land. It meets the requirements. It's a little bit different, but I think what y'all are getting ready to get haunted with is a lot of minor subdivision plats where people are going to want to come in here and start splitting things up. And I think that there need to be more eyes on it. What's the water availability? Is it only well? Is it, you know, yeah.
As we're thinking through this too, think about it from a standpoint of a citizen going through this, whatever, how many steps of process we create, it's, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 step process. They want to know as soon, you don't want to know to come to step 8.5 or 7.5. The know needs to be on the front end of it, with instructions of how do we correct this.
Yes, sir.
And we don't want to drag somebody through a process and they take hours and days and then, sorry.
Well, one way of addressing that again is all these addressed at the planning stage, and we already require plats for every split or combination, then the surveyor will help the citizen comply with us.
That's what we're supposed to do.
So just so I'm clear, right now, because I'm still a little confused on one thing. Derek's analogy is perfect, right up until he said, if I cut it up and give it to my son, 50 acres and 50 acres, but it goes to your office, and if your office, Robin's office, to become its own parcel for tax purposes, because you're not gonna send Derek the bill no more. It's now in his son's name. So unless that point right there is when you say, hey, I see what you recorded the deed, I see where Mr. Doster give you 50 and 50, but now you're gonna get the tax bill. Is that where you're saying, now you need to go get me a plat?
So that's what Derek said that too, and I agree with it for purposes of the tax bill. No, you should still send the tax bill to the prior owner. If you want to add this illegal new owner's name to it, that's great. Let's bill them both.
Okay. So I'm just trying to figure out how Robin's going to move forward. That's what I'm asking. How do you move forward?
Well, if we get a plat that,
Not no plat.
I mean, if we get a deed that has legal description that divides the property, we have to transfer the ownership. Now, we can go to.
You don't transfer ownership, Robin. You assess values.
We transfer ownership, Mike.
No, you don't.
Through a deed, we do.
Help me understand this then.
Yeah, help me understand it too, because we've been transferring ownership. We transfer.
What's transferring ownership?
If Todd sells his house to another owner, that transfers ownership through the deed. We have to put that in our system.
Transfer of ownership is a legal question, Robin, and you don't do it.
Whether
ownership has transferred is a matter of whether it's been done in court, whether a conveyance has been made in compliance with the law. You don't even bill people.
No,
you draw lot lines and you assess values, and Lamar bills people.
So when we get deeds in our office, what are we supposed to do with them?
What I just said.
Well, tell me again. Tell me again, so I'm clear.
If you get a deed that does not have a recorded plat that matches it, number one, you reported the planning and zoning. If they tell you, number two, it's going to be illegal anyway because it doesn't have a plat unless it's just been missed, which they'll correct that if it's been missed. But if it doesn't have a plat, it's illegal, and you're going to keep billing the same owner, and I suggest the old owner, and I suggest you bill the new owner too.
Well, then, I need to know, when the owner comes in, where am I supposed to tell them to look in the law that tells me I can't transfer their property? Or that I
don't transfer property.
Mike, I think you and I are just confusing each other.
You don't transfer property. You assess that.
So what does your law say that you have to follow?
No, where is it?
We have to, if Katie gets a deed filed in her office, it comes to our office. That property no longer belongs to the person we have in ownership.
Once that deed is filed, that ownership has been transferred.
Right.
Yeah, but that's
Katie's
job, isn't it?
She transfers the property, but we have to correct our system. We have to correct the digest to the new owner.
I think that's where the misunderstanding is who does what.
So when the attorney draws that deed up and it's filed, when it's filed, they know the previous owner no longer owns that property. The new owner does. That it's not. I'm not changing anything in the state system, or I'm not changing anything. I'm just taking that deed, recording it. Once it's recorded, it's sent to the state of Georgia for them to have it be indexed on all of their systems. But once that deed is filed and recorded, that transfer of property is done. It's transferred from previous owner to new owner.
So the attorney transferred the ownership, and Robin now has to follow through with the transfer of ownership by doing what?
Back up a step. Katie, will you only do that if they're giving you at least a minimum of meets and bounds?
They have, so we don't, I mean, as long as it meets the filing requirements, it has the margin, it has the legal description, it has the grantor grantee, it has the witness.
Legal description being meets and bounds?
Yes, that's what the legal description is. As long as it has all of that requirement, we have to accept it.
Okay. Yeah, like she can't turn the deed down.
Accept it. Not in Vegas. I can draw up a deed for a half acre of Terry's land, deeding it to Dennis, and I can forge Terry's name and bring it to your office and record it. And you don't have any duty check on any of that. You're just supposed to record it.
Correct.
That's right. But it's not a legal conveyance. It's illegal.
Well, then I'm sorry.
And there's nothing, it's not, I'm not pointing the finger at you.
Well, then just please,
You can sit
calm
down.
it down.
You can sit down.
And please don't tell me
But
what to do.
from a billing purpose, but it's from zoning standpoint, we catch it probably either when they come in for a permit or when the tax valuation office does their annual review. So that's when it gets reported to planning and zoning. They prosecute it as a zoning violation. And in the meantime, if you need to send out bills before it's resolved, just bill them both.
Does that mean that the prior owner is still liable for the taxes? I think it's what Rob was trying to figure out.
Exactly.
Right, yeah, because it's illegal.
But how do we know it's illegal? How do we know that someone has forged someone's signature? We don't, and it's not our job to investigate that.
But it also does create another issue.
It's not a forgery. It's still an illegal split. There's no plat. It doesn't conform. So you're going to keep billing Terry while Christopher prosecutes the zoning violation.
She records the deed, and when it goes to the state's going to use that cell in our audit. We have to account for it. So we can't just ignore it because the local zoning ordinance doesn't allow for it. If we don't have that cell listed, the state's going to, when they audit us, which they do every year, they're like, where's this parcel at? Why is it not created?
Why are you still billing the old owner?
And I've seen that list, and there's a place on it where you check off that it's not an arm's length valid, not a usable sale for any number of reasons.
And that's true, and that's what we do in our office, but that doesn't mean that the state's not going to consider it an arm's length sale, because Todd, myself, and Gary just went through this with our appeal to the State Department of Audits, and
it's going to meet their code, it just doesn't meet the local code. And that's where we're at. So they're going to use it against us, but we don't have it on the book.
But y'all's ordinances override that. Your zoning ordinance overrides all this.
Like, it's,
Your zoning ordinance overrides it. How many of these are y'all getting a year like this?
I don't know that we've got any.
That's what I'm saying, like, how many of these cases are you coming across? Is this really?
I think really the only reason we got these cases is because it was from prior, where our prior Board of Assessors and stuff had the policy where we would combine properties for tax purposes. We're no longer doing that anymore, so there shouldn't be any more issues like that coming up.
Okay.
Unless somebody's just purposely trying to skirt around the law.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So, and that's where we need to come to an understanding of what collectively, and that's why all of us are in one place at one time, collectively, what we need to do to stop that.
So, yeah, I mean, so, I think, is this right, Mike? What you're saying is if it doesn't have a plat attached to that description, I mean, Katie's recording it, but when it goes to planning, to the tax assessors, if it doesn't have a plat attached to it, then they should just.
From the tax assessor standpoint, first they bring it to planning and zoning's attention so they can prosecute it or hopefully get them voluntarily into compliance. But in the meantime, yeah, it's not a legal conveyance. Keep billing the old person. And actually, I thought Lamar's office actually kept up with the ownership, but anyway, whatever it is.
So before we move on.
But you want to just not bill the old owner even though it was non-compliant and only bill the illegal new owner.
Yeah, your tax bills go by the date of valuation, January 1st, but we do get a list from Robin's office of new owners as a courtesy and try to send them a bill.
Right.
For those after January 1st sales where there's no sticker shock.
Right, that's a good idea. Not legally required, but certainly helpful.
So before we move on, we're stuck on this, and we've already got an hour into it. We've got a lot further to go. Mike, from the legal standpoint, tell me every step that you wish that we could follow, so we will make sure that we can do that. What's in our legal bound? What do you need to see?
Get some comments back to me on the RFQ. Let's get it out. Let's get a modern zoning ordinance. It will incorporate all the planning requirements that Gary's telling us about. Then catch all these things on the front end, and this should not be a problem. And if somebody can still, I can still draw off those two parallel lines, and Katie has to record my deed, but we're gonna prosecute it. End of story.
To revert back to the any moratorium in any county in the state of Georgia, the state does not recognize moratorium. You can record a deed regardless on a split, even during the moratorium. All right?
I mean, yes, we have to continue to accept these.
Okay, but from at least if we get it communicated, if it doesn't have a plat, right, with it, at least it's communicated. And at least we know about it before it gets
And a plat
so
is
far
not
down the
required, or a plat is not required.
Well, I know, I'm not saying anything to you.
It wouldn't, like, once it goes from us, it would be wherever.
Yeah, I understand. You gotta do what you gotta do, and Robin's gotta do what he's gotta do. But if it doesn't have that plat, I mean, it seems like to me, the communication that to planning and zoning, that is not there. At least alerts planning and zoning that there's an issue that can be investigated. And I guess Mike suggested that we just bill the owner of, that is of record of that property until that.
And let me just say back from that, really, I don't care if it's Robin or Marville, as long as that illegal split does not go on our zoning map and become a lot of record.
And that's what we need to make sure.
So Robin, Gary, y'all are clear. We hope we won't see one of these for 8 months. I hope we don't never see one.
Hope we never
If
see
we see
it.
one Monday morning, are you clear enough to know how to move forward now from the discussion?
I think so.
Well, I mean, I don't want to leave here today and us not know A, B, and C steps.
I guess what I'm hearing is if we do get a deed that has split property just through, and it doesn't have a plat, it just has meets and bounds of legal description, I need to let planning and zoning know, hey, we got this deed in, there's no plat attached to it. You need to find out what's going on.
Need to do that, and like I said, I don't, billing's not a concern for purposes here. But yeah, you're right to bring this up because this goes to the whole thing. They're gonna want a line on a map and a new parcel number to send that bill under. And if we're using their map as our zoning map, that's not gonna work. And using two different maps doesn't work very well either.
Y'all don't use ours, right? You have your own set of maps.
To us?
Yes.
Yes, we have our set of maps that Owen keeps up with our maps.
But we're clear that Monday morning, guy walks in to record a deed in Katie's office, you know to say, hey, now you've got it in your hand. Hey, bud, I'm going to need you to go to P&Z. You're going to need to talk with them because there's some requirements they're going to need before I can create you a new parcel. Is that the step process that I'm understanding?
And up to this point, we haven't had that issue because anybody that is splitting property already goes and they come to our office with a plat from planning and zoning for us to assign a parcel number before it's ever recorded. Because when it's recorded in Katie's office, the parcel number's already on it.
Gotcha.
I don't see somebody developing a 10-lot subdivision doing this method. Like, I really don't see somebody doing a 10-lot subdivision and creating a 50-foot egress easement, and saying, oh, I've just created all these lots, and then I'm going to end up selling them to people because it's not going to get very far in the legal process.
You can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, the next lawyer's going to say, I can't do anything with this. What lawyer did this for you, basically, right?
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that, but I think cleaning it up, making it as clean as you can possibly be for a process when, Chris is gone, or Robin is gone, whoever takes over the next process. Because I think we do have some, I'll just say relic properties that are potential problems, and right now there's no rhyme or reason of why some things happened the way they did and whatnot. I just want to be able to say.
From our standpoint, it's pretty easy. I just bill whatever gets sent. So, I mean, I may have to explain an issue to an IRA taxpayer on one that gets billed to the original owner, but it's no big thing, really. I'll bill whatever I get sent.
So with Madison County Joiner here, I want everybody to understand, this is not a new topic, that we're talking about. This room today is comprised of a bunch of people that's trying to put together an SOP, technically, of how we need to do it. Robin will tell you, Christopher will tell you, Lamar, Katie, and everybody else in this room that has been a department head or is a department head will tell you, we don't have an SOP of a certain standard on a certain topic. That's what we're creating today. And I know it gets heated back and forth. I feel like I'm very calm, thank God. But I appreciate it because I appreciate your temper, yours, and anybody else's, because we all are trying to get to the point of a final resolve, because we've kicked this can for 40 years. And today we finally get an opportunity to fix it. So,
well, let's clarify that just a little bit. We are laying the groundwork to create an SOP.
Correct. That's right.
I mean, we're not, there will not be a vote today on this subject. But at the end of the day, we definitely require the input from Katie's office, Robin's office, Lamar, and P&Z on all of this to pull it together to the point that everyone involved understands that, you know, we're not going to do A, B, C, J, K, L. You know, there's going to be a step and a process that we go through that everybody has to comply with. And we're, somewhere down the line, we're going to get into examples of that. And what we need to do as part of a check and balance within each department to make sure that happens. And not, here again, not implying or insinuating that someone has done anything nefarious in the past. We definitely have to have review at every level, particularly because we are a county that has a number of single person areas of responsibility that we don't let that person give them the authority to exceed what their responsibilities are, which is we're going to get into some discussion regarding that shortly.
Katie, and you said you get a lot of these. Is there a way for you to send the ones that don't come in face to face an auto reply back to those that come in as an e-file that just states to them that although we're recording this does not necessarily create a legally conforming split in Madison County, and you need to?
The only way that we can send a reply would be if we reject the filing, and we put a rejection reason. Once if it's accepted, we can't send like an auto reply. It's through a portal that is through the state of Georgia.
Is that problematic?
No, she's right.
Well, no, but is that problem? Is that something we need to look at another area to address?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to address it through the clerk of court's office. I mean, that's just not, they don't do title services and meets and bounds matters. It's just not, they don't have the resources. And you'd have to do her budget by many multiples if you wanted to do that.
Now, when they submit those deeds like that, is there a way for contact? Like, do they put besides their legal name and address, because it could be a company name, is there a phone number that we can call? Like, because it's going to come from Robin, or it's going to go to P&Z first. P&Z needs a way to reach out to them to let them know what the next step is. But if we just got Capital One Improvements being the property owner, when they send that over, is there something that goes along with it? So
whoever prepares the deed is who we return the deed to. And their information is on the top left-hand corner. It'll have name, address, sometimes a phone number. It's just where we return the deed to.
I just need to know how to get step 2, or get step 2 followed through to 3, and I was worried about that.
But a lot of those are going to be like mortgage companies and stuff like that.
Correct.
Gotcha. All right.
Lien holders.
Yeah, lien holders. That's what I'm saying. They have a non-conforming lot. Yeah.
Which example do you want to do first?
Do whoever was probably simpler.
It is.
Let's do that first.
Which one?
Well,
Yes, right.
So, keep in mind, this is not hashing, this is productivity.
Right.
I promise.
So, Terry, can you maybe give us the reason why we pulled this property, like how it was brought to your attention for us to do?
This actually had a call on this one, and this is a property it's a 90-acre, 100-acre tract. It's in a very rural part of the county, but, had a community member call up, and he says there's flags up here, like somebody's doing some surveying, want to know what's going on. So I called and when Christine and Lacey and Chris and get some questions going, and then they start digging through this and find it's a very similar situation to what we had going down at Pioli 2 years ago, I guess, where without our recognition, or that's not what, but anyway, there's a large parcel that somebody thinking it is a good idea to divide this goes in there and creates some lines. No deeds transacted, but they create some parcel subdivisions. At the same time, now Cuba becomes available, and maybe they're not ready to sell, or the market isn't where they want to be, so they come back, although they have already drawn these lines. So you got a 100-acre tract that now is divided into 15 or 20 parcels. So instead of paying taxes on 25-acre parcels, I'd rather come in and talk to the good folks at property valuations that I want to claim Cuba on this. So sign up for, and under the laws that property valuations, the current rules of Cuba, if it's contiguous properties, they can consider it all as one. So there's no reason for them not to grant Cuba. But the problem for us is
Stop there. No. Ken.
I talked to the man today at Department of Revenue, and he said, yeah, they're contiguous. Now, these are not separately deeded. They're all one that it's just platted. So not having deeded separately, but just platted.
As part of a larger farm.
Yeah, as part.
Well, sure. I mean, if they meet the use and acreage requirements, they can each have their own covenant, but they're not combined.
They are.
No. Right. They wouldn't be combined.
The covenant now is considered as one covenant for the whole parcel.
I read the statute yesterday. That's not what it says.
Yeah, we would give them a separate contract for each parcel, because they are separate parcels, but they would be considered one large farm as far as being in Cuba. But they could be 10-acre tracts.
Right. Yeah.
I've never, in my experience, been able to revert back, once we did something like this for tax purposes, to revert back to the original lot layout without going through new regulations.
So that's where we get into the challenge. This, in Jeffrey's case, may not get there, but again, it got that way at Pioli. So somebody who is reaping the benefits of Cuba then comes back and if they get a buyer at the price they want. So now they want us to accept the lots that they drew 20 years ago. So what is happening to us is they got their cake and they're eating it too. We've been receiving the benefits of the lower taxation from the Cuba valuation. But now all of a sudden we expect you to go back and recognize those individual lots that we drew 20 years ago that may have even been prior to some regulation, major subdivision regulation. And that's what we're looking at this for.
Can I try to understand the problem? Because Cuba is mostly a matter of use.
That's right. What's the use on the 100 acres as a whole? What's the use?
It's hay. This what we're talking about is hay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when that person, so this change that occurs that triggers this dilemma is when the use is changed. So if the use is changed to a non-qualifying use, then, the owner can do that, but they have to pay the penalty, which basically double tax savings for the period of the covenant, unless they do it at the end of a 10-year covenant period, and they just take it out. Yeah. That's fine.
So let's go through the history of it, and it probably will answer some of the questions.
All right, Lacey, you're on it. Lacey, you're going to do it.
Me and Lacey would tag team it. We worked together, and I was like, no, not this, add that.
But the question that I'm asking is, one, should they be allowed to Cuba with those parcels that are divided in there? And now, my understanding after talking to Kelly today, there actually is not a minimum acreage on Cuba contracts.
Right. There's
you have to, to your satisfaction, has to prove it has to be used for what they're saying it's going to be used for.
Unless it's wildlife.
Wildlife.
But on this one of Weber, you're saying it's not one contract, it's multiple contracts.
It is. It's 10 contracts.
How many lots?
10 lots.
Anyway, let's go through the history, maybe answer Rob.
Okay, so I'll just go through the packet, it's just standing here. When Lacey pulled it, she pulled the original plat was from 1955, just here. When the survey was done, it was recorded December the 20th. The total acreage at the time was 205 acres. Then we get to the current plat. That survey was done in 86, and it was recorded in I think you meant 68. You read that backwards.
Yeah,
The survey was done in 68, then it was recorded in the same year, and the total acreage was 196 acres, and it was divided into 20 lots. So those are the 20 lots. Then you can see on number 3, this right here, this intersection. So 5 through 14, all this between the road here was sold and purchased by Mr. Welburn Senior, the father that we're talking about. So you have your warranty, it was transferred by warranty deed when it was recorded. And that center section is a total of 70.7 lots zoned as A1. And so you can see the property card, it's in here from 2007.
Is this timeline
Yes.
on your screen?
Well, I'm scrolling through as I'm reading it.
Okay, I just didn't know if they wanted to see what you're reading.
Yeah, it's whatever else they were.
It's quite complex.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, as you can see right here, number three on the timeline, is what I'm reading. This is where the guy brought the property to the deed. Let's see. So before it was called a CUBA, it was called a Preferential Agricultural Assessment Application. And that property, this property here, entered that agreement from 1994 to 2004. And then it fell out of...
At that time, were there not minimum acreages on that?
Under preferential?
Yes.
No.
There were not, okay. So
So
again, were those done individually, they were done on individual lots, or was it all?
I think at that time it was taxed as a 70-acre tract.
I think so too, because it says number of acres.
The preferential only changed the assessment from 40% to 30%. So if you were in preferential, you paid at a 30% level rather than a 40% level.
Item number 4 shows the preferential agricultural assessment application, and it shows the 70.7, so it's doing the whole thing, not individual tracts.
Okay.
It just did the whole thing.
So that's where, that's one of the questions I have in my mind. When we have one of these, whether it be the old assessment or the CUBA, if we accept it as a whole like this, then do those interior lines go away? So so that at that point, that's where we get into the, I want my cake and eat it too. I'm asking for my valuation based on the whole thing, but then I'm going to ask you again for the privilege that goes with those small parcels being there.
Yeah, and I don't know how it got to be the 70 acres because this plat existed long before 1994.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the assessor's office did to decide that it should be taxed to 70 acres rather than those individual lots.
Mm-hmm.
But
it has one parcel ID on it though.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right, because it was taxed as 70 acres. That would have been one parcel ID at that point.
If you look under 3E, where they, on or around 1993, lots 5 through 14 were listed as one tract with a total of 70.7 acres as A1, and that's that one parcel number.
You see, in my mind, if we do that, then all those individual lines go away.
I don't think that's how they do it now, though.
So, right, and so I think Robin and I are on the same page on this, so let me make this, you know better than I do. So I think we agree that, that was an error back in 93 to put it together.
I hope it was just an error.
Yeah, right, well, exactly, it should have been done.
Yeah.
It lists lot numbers out on the address property, so this is the individual lot numbers that are on it.
Yeah, so, yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be, that should have been done. However, for a tax, and this is where even more I need your expertise, CUBA is not, the lot size doesn't matter if it's being taxed under CUBA, it's based on soil types and those other factors.
Right, and
Yeah, right, soil types. So even though this is wrong, and from a zoning perspective and a land use regulation perspective, no, those lines didn't go away. But the fact is, the owner didn't get any benefit of from those lines, from this happening, because CUBA taxes him on soil types, not
Yeah.
lot sizes anyway.
The benefit to him from those lines being there is after I had to, again, since now, and originally there were some acreage minimums on CUBA. There are not now.
That's right.
But, so it depends on when, and it gets a little convoluted. He's under his second CUBA contract. When his first CUBA contract was written, there probably were those minimal acreages were in place, and a lot of these lots would not conform. Now again, y'all locally have discretion to make some definition, or make some design and say, yes, it is legitimate, so you can alter those. But there was a minimal acreage on those CUBAs initially.
Well, he signed up in '94, but it was a preferential contract, it wasn't a CUBA contract.
But he's under his second CUBA now.
But, yeah, and
now, but when he signed up, it was a '94 contract and preferential, so it went from '94 to 2004. Preferential doesn't have an acreage requirement, because there's preferential, a lot of times the smaller parcels actually preferred that, because it's 30% across the board, it applies to the buildings too. So if you had 2 acres with poultry houses on it,
sure,
you could get it all across the board.
I got you.
Well, when it came out in 2004, he sat out of any type of farming program until 2008, which happened to be when we split it back out.
Right.
So he didn't get any break on, he wasn't allowed it. He didn't backdoor any regulations based off the acreage, because he wasn't in CUBA when there was acreage requirements.
Right, when CUBA became available in 2008, correct?
That's when he
He re-enters it into CUBA in 2008. Are those 20 different contracts?
Yes.
There are 10 different contracts.
Right.
But they're allowed in even based off the acreage, even if there was an acreage requirement at that time, they're allowed in because they're contiguous and they're contiguous use.
That's what I was saying then.
Well, that's right, but still, I mean, and I know this is, y'all will check this, still, each lot stands alone, and at least 50% of that lot has to be in a qualified.
They still have to meet the qualification,
Right.
but they can get it based off.
So here's the question that I get at from a taxing standpoint. And I understand what y'all are saying there, but he is receiving preferential tax consideration based on the CUBA contract. That's considerably different than if he were being taxed without CUBA on 20 different parcels.
Sure.
So and that's where I get concerned about those lines having been there, and so we get.
But that's just the law.
Yeah, well, yeah, I get that. If it was one CUBA contract, and that's what we're dealing with now at Peoria, correct? That was one CUBA contract.
Well,
and then they
keep that separate from that, because that's a different situation. But again, if I have 100 5-acre parcels that are platted that way, and I've got at least 50% of each of them devoted to a qualified use, they have to give me.
Right. We had, and we had that exact thing happen with the old subdivision over here on Colbert-Danielsville Road that the Dunleavys purchased. It was a subdivision that was started, it was never completed, the Dunleavys purchased it, they came in, filed for, they changed the zoning on it, filed for CUBA, and we had to give it to them, even though it was individual subdivision lots.
As a platted subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because it goes off the only zoning has nothing to do with conservation. The only time zoning may affect conservation is if someone comes in and applies and says that they're doing poultry houses on it, but their zoning doesn't allow for poultry houses. Mm-hmm. But they can have a commercial zoning and still get conservation.
So with something being a platted subdivision, does that not define its use?
No, not from their perspective.
We only have to look at use and ownership.
Does from our.
They have to qualify for use and ownership.
See, this is where I would side with Terry. If I would, and I get what you're saying 100%, I totally understand it, and I agree with it, but this is where I'm coming from with Terry. If I had 20 acres, and I put 2-acre lots, made a subdivision out of it, I don't think I should be able to get KUBA on that 20 acres combined, just because it's sitting there and I haven't sold off the 2-acre lots yet. I think the lot lines are going to have to be.
Well, you're not getting KUBA because it's just sitting there, you're getting KUBA because you're devoting it to a bona fide agricultural use.
You haven't changed the use, you haven't sold it into subdivision lots, so why would you be?
If I've got those lots and I would say I'm not gonna do anything with them, grow trees or grass or whatever, and I want to benefit from lower taxes, I've committed myself that I can't sell that lot or I have to pay the penalty.
Yeah, right.
Well,
The
only
only thing with the KUBA, but what I'm saying, is like what Terry's saying, or what I think what Terry's saying is, if I've got 2-acre platted parcels, I want to remove those 2-acre lots to combine it instead of letting you combine it based off the use. I don't think I should get the cake and eat it too, because right now, the KUBA on a 2-acre lot subdivision, that land's probably worth $35,000 for 2 acres, but under KUBA, or under regular standards, that lot's only worth $10,000.
But if you, KUBA's only about use.
I understand.
Your tax at the
But
KUBA value.
I see where he's coming from.
But isn't it?
If you got 50 acres in KUBA, it doesn't matter if it's 10 5-acre tracts or 1 50-acre tract, you're being taxed on that state set KUBA value. There's no break in putting it all as one. There's it's actually more helpful to have it in smaller tracts, because if you decide, if you got 5 10-acre pieces,
You can sell it off.
you can sell off this one and only have to worry about breaching this contract. You don't have to worry about breaching the whole 50 acres.
I got on those smaller parcels, the breach is just considered the price of doing business. People know before they do anything.
Yeah.
They'll come in and check with us, see what a breach penalty is.
Yeah, no, I mean, I understand
And
that,
there
guys.
you go, Terry, I heard what you just said. The state just made KUBA way too easy, and that's exactly right. And they
That's
make
right.
it hard. Every time the General Assembly meets, they make it harder on Robbins Baker.
They put too much of that on the board of assessors. They need to be like the Department of Revenue used to be. When you applied for KUBA, you had to walk the top line. Preferential was what everybody had until, what was it, late 90s, thereabouts?
It was actually 1991, I think, when KUBA came in.
And when KUBA came in, it was designed for forestry farms, big row cropping operations, all like that, and then it jumped to small parcels.
So, but by being it combined like that in that whole acreage, if somebody comes in and says they want to buy 2 of those acres or whatever, it's going to be a breach of all of it if they sell it to
Don't
you.
they got individual contracts?
Right, no, so they got individual contracts.
Yeah, that's the purpose of having the individual.
So they've got.
He can sell 5 lots, pay a breach on 5 lots, and still reap the benefits on those 5 lots.
But it does have to be contiguous use. So like if you've got 50, and we denied one this year for this same reason, the family has hundreds of acres, but they're in multiple different tracts. Well, on the corner, they've got one that's a 5-acre piece, but all of their other tracts are row crops. This one 5-acre piece, he tried to apply under timber because there's nothing but woods on it. Well, we denied that one even though it's contiguous, but it's not contiguous use.
Okay.
So that's why we denied it.
That's right. So it's got to all be the same.
The same type use.
Okay.
Yeah, good deal.
Most of the issues.
And even that's tied up with some really complicated rules about when lots are under 10 acres, which they recently made that harder on Robbins' office too.
A lot of the problems you have with conservation now from previous boards of assessors and previous chief appraisers that looked at it as a tool to keep somebody from filing an appeal. We'll put conservation on these 10 acres of trees.
That's true.
That's what they haven't cleaned up now.
Yep.
Well, 10-acre KUBA's never made no sense to me.
Well, anything under 10 acres has to have profit and loss statements from the IRS. We've had to prove.
Exceptions now that you,
Right.
that you can't even require that, so.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Don't have to provide like Schedule F or something like that.
There's 3, I was just reading yesterday, there's now 3 categories of sub-10 acre, and I don't remember what they are, but there's 3 circumstances where the tax assessor can't even require your schedule out.
All right, go ahead.
But your statement you made, Mike, answers, I guess, doesn't make me happy, but it answers, so if it's a plat, even if it's a platted subdivision, that does not declare a use.
That's right.
So, that conversation sums up basically everything else on here. So from 2004 to 2008, there was no CUBA on any of the property. CUBA was applied for with all 10 tracts, which was in the center I showed you earlier in 2008. The property remained as one tract until 2008 when the owner applied for a conservation assessment. The Board of Assessors mapped those lots individually and allowed the owner to apply and receive conservation on lots 5 through 14.
Oh, excuse me, sorry. Go back in 5B.
So the property remained as one tract until 2008 when the owner applied for conservation use value assessment. At that time, the assessor's office pulled the plat, which indicated that there should be individual lots rather than a single large tract.
Can the county go in and say, revert that from being a subdivision legally without an application process? Like if it's been platted, if it was platted in 68 and, you know, they've got, even could take CUBA out. I mean, you know, if I didn't do anything with it, it's platted subdivision, it sits and sits and sits. The county can't come back and revert it to not be a subdivision, right?
Which is problematic for us because the subdivision ordinances have changed.
Yeah.
They're obviously much more stringent than they were. And I did ask Kenny about that when I talked to him today. And that would be something that we could do. And again, it wouldn't matter on this one because he has a contract on each individual one. But if somebody wants to contract on the whole, then we as a county could say that those interior lines go away.
No, because land, the Board of Assessors is separate from us, so, and we're doing two different things for different reasons. So, no, so we regulate land use. I suppose what we could do, to Gary's point, is, I mean, I thought that was normally handled with development permits and things like that. I mean, we could have requirements that, I mean, you know, that's a big step for Madison County that we haven't even talked about, but we could have, in addition to building permits, we could have development permits that then potentially control how quickly you have to develop your subdivision before.
So look, if the lot stayed stagnant for 15 years and they would revert back to the prior.
Right.
And the reason I say that is during the recession, we worked on a lot of subdivisions where an individual went and bought it because it was an adjoining piece of property that went bust. And, you know, let's just, Jackson County, 3/4 acre lot, they've hire us to revert the plat back to one overall tract because the taxes are killing them.
Right.
Now, they can't go back without us meeting new regs, even though the asphalt's in. I think the Kincaid subdivision was similar. Like, you gotta come back in under these regs. We'll work with you, but,
right.
You know, yeah, so I also think that y'all can dictate undoing a subdivision through tax conservation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
On this particular, we don't have anything in ordinance that says that this has been a platted subdivision for 35 years and nothing has been done.
Correct.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have that for purposes of platting and lot lines, but potentially maybe we could do it through, if we want to have development regulations and permits along that process.
Yeah, kind of done that, though, raising these acreages, A1's now 25 acre minimum. I mean, you're gonna get rid of where they were doing 7 acre lots in A1 and, you know, it just, I think going forward, y'all are in a whole lot better position with this stuff because everything's having to, as she said, zoning, the cases have tripled this year, I guess, you know, I mean, everything's having to come through here now. So,
which itself is a double-edged sword because it means you're getting rezone applications for tiny, you know, just routine stuff. And again, not a land planner, but I did try to do my best to write you an RFQ to get one.
You definitely need somebody to write the regs.
If you did the development regulations, you could set the timeline to where if you did it, you know, they had to be developed within X amount of years. If you did it smaller than the 10-year covenant time, then that would deter them from being, you know, having it split that way, but putting it in CUBA for 10 years, getting the break, and then, so if you did like, you know, you got to develop it within 8 years or something,
that knocks them out from putting it in Cuba.
Typically, that's regulated through development permits. If I had a development permit, it'd be for 24 months. If I don't call in for pre-con or put silt fence up in those 24 months, my permit's gone.
That's right.
Yeah,
We had the same
I've got to go back through the new process.
That's defensible.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thank you, Gary.
And we use it for rezones all the time when they have to have one submitted within 6 months, or it's invalid.
Good.
Same, but different.
We'll need to follow up on that procedure. What Gary just stated, that might be what y'all look at, maybe the magic bullet.
There again, Gary and I are gonna write that for you, but I wrote you on it.
No, I know. I know.
Okay, so 5C, the Board of Assessors employees map these lots individually and allow the owner to apply and receive conservation on lots 5 through 14. The property record card is actually on the screen. A separate application for Cuba was filed for each parcel. Only one parcel record is attached for this timeline. All other parcels have a contract in our own file. Those are also in here. I don't like reading to y'all, just so y'all know.
Doing a good job.
E, a letter of approval from the Board of Assessors, August the 22nd, 2008. That's what's on your screen that lists out the maps and parcels, their acreage. 6, a warranty deed was issued for the right of survivorship done by Willis Wilburn to Willis and Jeffrey Wilburn. The deed changed in 2015 and was recorded in 2015.
Each time they convey that, though, they conveyed it as individual lots. They
Yeah.
didn't convey it as an aggregate parcel.
No.
Right. So 7, the conservation use assessment continuation. Due to deed changes, the continuation was applied for and granted on May the 12th, 2016. Number 8. Conservation, so Cuba renewal, the application for Cuba was May 1st, 2018. Only one parcel record is attached for this timeline. All other parcels do have a contract and are on file. This is just part of them. Number 9, the last one on the screen, for warranty deed from Willis to Jeffrey Wilburn. The deed change was May the 26th, 2020. It was recorded June 1st, 2020. A Cuba continuation did not need to be processed at this time since Jeffrey and Willis were both on the application in 2016. There's been no other activity since 2020.
Thank you, Christina. Quickly, I think, Mike, I was referring to Gary Cavalier, and Gary and Robin putting something together about what he just said about putting a reverter in it within that 8-year window, so that way they don't enter into a 10-year.
No, that's not where that happens.
Yeah, that's something y'all would have to do.
Yeah, that would be y'all planning something.
Right. As long as you do 8, you do 5.
Yeah. But any number of years that y'all agree to do.
Yeah, any numbers don't matter.
Any number less than 10 years.
Yeah.
Right, so the next example is very confusing. And a lot of y'all in this room are going to have some strong opinions about this. And there's going to be a moment where you're going to be like, that person that's no longer here did this and they shouldn't have. So all this is done and we're all moving forward.
Skip that part of the conversation.
We're moving forward. Okay. So this is for Seagraves Road. This parcel, me and Lacey, just a little backstory before I start reading it, me and Lacey did a lot of research on this. This is in Mr. Adams' district. It's a parcel that bought in like 4 or 5 big lots, and then it was split up, and it created private drives, but it hasn't been developed yet.
Let me say that it is in the process of being cleared to be developed, with the determination yet to be made how many lots can be put there and what the access is going to be and what standard that has to be. Is that
Yeah.
safe to say that?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's that possible? You already have to know how many lots are going to be there.
No, because our private drive requirements changed, which ultimately is going to mess up some of the lot sizes the way they were cut up.
Gotcha. All right, go ahead.
All right. First, just y'all know I'm rolling with one finger and reading with something else. Okay, so February the 5th, 1991, the following parcels were purchased, excuse me, by Mr. James E. Jeffer. There are 6 parcels. Some are zoned A2, some are zoned RR, and then there's, all the property records are from 2005. So this is the quitclaim deed on the screen for all of those. So you can see, like this one goes down to parcel 6. Lacey, was it parcel 6 or parcel 5 that was not?
Those deeds were all kind of wonky. There was 2 that I could not find the deed for. So I think it's parcel number 5 that's not listed in this one.
I think it's 6. And 6 says that was Sam Grove Street. Where 5 talks about worship. Okay, so parcel 6 is nowhere near where this survey actually is. This parcel is way off somewhere.
In the plat, that plat, because that probably doesn't go with this.
Yes, it doesn't go with this, but it referenced this, it was referenced. So that's where we're at with that one. This goes with, this is the plat for the deed that's on the screen. There's 2 large tracts.
There's more than that.
Oh, that's right.
There's like 4 or 5 pages.
Yes. Okay. Did you number these 2? Yeah, those are all property.
Christopher, this has not been before P and Z yet.
No.
None of this, yeah, this is gonna be a nightmare.
Yes.
But, you know,
Yes, Teresa and I spent probably 45 minutes last week or week before going through all the rezone applications all the way back to the early 2000s to see if a rezone had ever been applied under either the Jeffer name or the current owner's name, and no rezone applications have ever been filed.
Nice GIS database would save all that.
Oh, I know. We're gonna, that's a different meeting, but we gotta have it.
Then I need to ask the question now, if there's no rezone and they're cutting this up, they're clearing land to build houses now.
I think seeing the timeline will help.
Yes. The jump ahead, this was when zoning administrators were allowed by the state to approve, new plats and surveys done.
Well, they can still do that, but,
Well, it was when they were.
no, what I'm looking at here is you don't have any lots
Right, that's
below
what
2 acres. And so they, in the minimum, and they're all zoned RR, which should now be AR, and at that time, 2 acres was the minimum, so.
If I can, and I don't mean to talk over you, Mike.
Yeah, please.
If we could get from 1 to the end of 6, I think it would help, or just in this one, I think it would help set up a better picture of where we're at today. If we could get through those, no offense to anybody, but I think it would answer a lot of the questions across the board. Sorry.
All right, so number 2, all above parcels were combined for tax purposes in 2006 per appeal and the BOE decision. Acreages were combined.
I hope that was BOC decision.
No.
That was the board
BOE,
equalization.
no board
Yeah.
equalization,
Yes.
that's the reason it's C.
Yes, yes, sir.
That
They
makes
were
sense.
combined into parcel 15-1018 to create a 65.13 acre parcel with zoning of RR for the total acreage due to the parent parcel being listed as RR.
So that's wrong. I mean, factually, that's correct, but it shouldn't have happened.
Okay. So number 3, which is on the screen, Jeffer applied for conservation in 2007 on the total 63.13 acres in 2008. He applied for that in 2007, I'm sorry. Then in 2008, the zoning changed from RR to A2 to accommodate the conservation application process. No rezone was done per planning and zoning to change from RR to A2. So we all know that that's not how things should have happened.
So when it says the zoning changed, what does that mean?
It was changed in the office.
Manually.
Which
Manually
office?
in the
Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning.
You changed the map?
I did.
I mean, they changed. Never mind, you didn't look up.
Just want to make sure we all got that.
2008, yes.
Okay.
It was done in the Bible. I saw his eyes get big. 2008, it was manually done in the office in the Bible. But our book of on mode and zoning was done. So it was one parcel up until this point in time, zoned RR, and then they changed it to A2.
It wasn't even one parcel.
The story gets better.
Okay, so we're one parcel at A2. All right, now, October 31st, 2019, no, this time out, 1 second. Number 3, Lacey, they didn't record a new plat when they combined that acreage, right?
No, the Jeffers did not do any plat changes at all the whole time that they owned the property. So from time of purchase till time of sale, no plats were altered.
Let me ask you this, if the Board of Equalization approved the parcels being combined, it doesn't mean that the planning office, because again, the tax assessor and planning are two total different.
That's right.
Yeah, so
BOE used it as a term that used to be applied called plottage. It was just a paperwork thing. You know, there was nothing legal as far as meets and bounds, line changes, anything.
It more than likely came to the assessor's office, but the owner did ask him to have it combined. The assessor's office told them no. They went to the Board of Equalization. Board of Equalization said, yes, you can combine it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Not even in their jurisdiction.
Don't confuse assessors with the Board of Equalization.
No, I got that, I understand.
Back when this happened right here, there wasn't a good relationship between the appraisal staff and anybody in the county wanted to truth about it. So a lot of stuff was used to kind of settle a bunch of fussing and everything.
So October 31st, 2019, property went from James Jeffer to Sandra Jeffer by deed of estate. Hold on, I'm scrolling. All right, so number 5, December the 29th of 2020, Ms. Sandra Jeffer sold all land to a development company. The deed is attached with plat references. This is where it starts to get confusing. This is Lacey's underlining some stuff to find.
So it's all sold at one time to Swantley Development, but it is considered a 65.13 acre parcel.
Of A2.
No, well, that's what it is on the tax map, but that's not what it is. It was a lot of record, and if you look at the deed,
yes,
you'll see a bunch of parcels.
Yes, that's where
that are correct.
Yes, it's listed as 4 parcels. That's it on the screen. That's where me and Lacey underline some stuff to find what else is happening.
Outstanding work, by the way.
Yeah, she's great at this.
Are y'all for hire?
No, we're good. We're good. All right, so number 6 is March the 17th, 2021. A new survey was done to reconfigure original 6 parcel property lines. Survey was done. I'm not the surveying company that's listed. The plat was approved by a previous employee on March the 29th, 2021. Per the plat, zoning is RR. Plat recorded in 2021. Let's see, per planning and zoning, this plat was approved because the number of parcels did not change. Okay, right there. Me and Lacey had a constructive conversation about this because the previous plat, it was 4 parcels, but then he had it resurveyed and those lines moved, but it remained at 4 parcels.
It started as 6 and ended as 6.
Right.
So all they did was move the lines from over here to over here and change the shape of them. The acreage, the total acreage did not change, just the lines. But his parcels changed acreage compared to the original parcel acreage. So it was convoluted.
Yeah. So this little March 2021, there was a whole lot of stuff that happened. Okay, so D, per planning and zoning, the plat was approved because the number of parcels did not change. E, the new parcel numbers for those 6 parcels are as follows. So you can see there's...
So we went from RR to A2 back to RR.
Yes.
How did Swantley know it was zoned RR if I was at A2? I mean, we do a lot of digging when we get a project like this to try and figure out what we're working with. Somebody knew it was RR before they bought it. But if the Bible said A2, because what I've always been told was whatever's in here is what we're going by, you know, so. I mean, somebody knew it was RR before they spent the money.
Okay, so here,
They know that answer.
so in the commissioner's package, they have this. So what Lacey did was she went through and kind of color coded to hopefully make it easier to see the tract as a whole and how it's split up, the 6 tracts that it shows. You got 1, the red, yellow, blue, green, purple.
And then the purple box does have 2 separate parcels. It was just too many lines to add 1 more in there. But 2 separate parcels in the purple box.
That little square down the bottom, not part of it.
No.
That one's where it gets even more.
He's talking about this one way down here at the road.
Yeah.
Not this one, not that green one.
Oh, no, that little bitty blue?
Yes, yes.
No, that one's not part of it.
Yes.
Is that the Harding Group property?
I don't remember the property owner's name on that one.
This one, that one cut out.
Yeah, I think that's the Harding Group property.
Yes.
But the green box.
Yep. The purple and green box were on the original plat at the very beginning. That purple box had a total of 3 parcels. At some point over time, somebody decided to build a house, so they redrew those lines to make the green box and left the other 2 parcels as they were, if that makes any sense. It was a very big puzzle with no easy.
All right, number 7.
Did Jackson County approve this plat as well?
We didn't pull Jackson County, but you are right. So that black line that you see through there, that's the county line. But we don't know what Jackson.
Typically, I have to record in both counties and get approval from both counties, even if I don't have control, like, that looks like open space to me back there. It's
Yeah,
with-
the pond.
Yeah,
It's a
so
pond.
I would still have to go through their approval process with it being, part of it being in their county, yeah.
So I'm scrolling for everybody to see what y'all got. That's when we were talking about purple and green. We can scroll back to some of this, Gary, for you to look at, some of you can read it. So
I mean,
number
if the property was zoned RR and they reconfigured parcels and it met the zoning requirements, then, I mean, it's just a recombination plat. There's really nothing illegal about it. Somebody knew it was zoned RR before they offered this widow a bunch of money.
Yeah.
RR to A2 to RR.
It never went to A2, only went to A2 without public hearing by somebody changing it to A2 in the book, is what it sounds like.
Which means it's illegal in the
Yeah,
void.
same thing as what we're talking about earlier.
Which goes back to RR.
Yeah.
It was RR all along.
Yeah.
So number 7, April the 14th, 2021, a new survey was done to split parcel 15-1801 to create 4 new parcels. And this is what happened. You took these tracts, larger tracts, and split a bunch of them at one time. So for that parcel, it was split 4 times. The plat was approved by previous employer in December 8, 2021. The plat was recorded in 2022. New parcel numbers, they're assigned A, B, C.
Scroll back up to the one where he turned it in to recombine.
Go down. One more. That's what he turned in.
That configuration.
That
So
was
basically,
the
what you're
design.
saying is that they knew when they recombined it that way, that they were gonna then take those lots and bust them up even further as individual parcels. Pretty
Right.
slick, pretty slick. I mean, somebody had a lot of thought, a lot of premeditation.
That flag thing.
They had a lot of guidance.
Start with 1.
This thing is first rate, I think we should send it.
You can read that better than I can.
Which is also one put A2 on.
Excuse me, sorry.
They're both like base policy.
All right, we'll go back to 7 here. So that's the parcel tract that was split up. Here, shows you here how it was split
You know
up.
what original parcel was?
Yeah, it's on that timeline. It tells you the original one.
Okay.
Number 7, original track would have been 15-1801. So that
So
would have
it's the
been
far
track
right.
number 1.
Yeah, yeah.
Track number 1.
Yeah, I've got to say that.
Alright, so on the 16th, April 16th, 2021, a new survey was done, split parcels 151804 to create 4 new parcels. Same surveying company, same employee. The plat was recorded January 4th, 2022, and then the new parcel numbers are listed there. And these are zoned RR also. That's here. So all this was one tract that was split up. Same thing.
I didn't know y'all had an administrative subdivision plat in y'all's regulations. Haven't seen that one written out.
Not aware of it.
Yeah.
Number 9 was the April the 16th, 2021, a new survey was done. It split an additional parcel from the original set that was bought, 15-1805, also to create 4 new parcels. Same surveyor, employee, and it was recorded the same day, January the 4th, 2022, and there were 4 new parcels created.
Just for the record, items 6, 7, 8, and 9 did not come before the Board of Commissioners.
No.
Done in-house.
Administrative subdivision, that's what it would normally be called.
Yeah.
We're dealing with these subdivision regs from the 80s, so our subdivision regs only apply to major subdivisions.
Right.
So essentially, everything that's not a major subdivision is an administrative.
New regulations written, you can prevent this manipulation that occurred. I mean, I don't think there's anything done legally here, but I'm not a lawyer.
Right.
I mean,
You're right.
That's correct. So that was the loophole. From my understanding, why the board kind of went to the moratorium with that loophole to close that. So obviously the moratorium was very long, and what we did quickly was the private drive ordinance. So this is where we put regulations on it, the construction of a new private drive to service 2 or more homes with the exclusion of family members. It's got to be brought up to, it's got to have 60-foot right of way, 22-foot bed, so much inch and binder, all that kind of stuff. So that is that stopgap for this development being another
Would there
private
be a
drive.
regulation, because basically they simultaneously recorded all these plats. So, I mean, it was a very novel idea, but, I mean, you created basically 4 lots out of each parcel, is what it looked like to me. So in one day, they came in here and took 4 parcels and created 20 parcels, and it was allowed, which is really odd to me in any municipality that I would go to.
That ties back to the parent parcel concept.
Yeah.
So ours is defined with a rolling period of, you can divide every lot into so many new lots within a period of time, before it becomes, and if you go over the threshold, it becomes a
subdivision
major.
regulation.
Yes, exactly. Oconee County's is, they tie it to a set point in time, that, they use the tax maps. We obviously couldn't do that, but we could say legal lots of record that I think, they said it's 2006 when they adopted their UDC, which might be something, if and when we get a UDC, we might set that date as our point in stone for our parent parcels from then on. But anyway, I actually called, but there's similarities, so I called the Oconee planning director and asked him how he would approach this, and we talked through it, and we came to that same conclusion that this, he had stayed within that bounds and not gone over going into major subdivision territory with any of those splits.
That's a similar subject
before any of our changes.
Before our changes, right.
Yes.
So there was a 90-acre parcel, and the same buyer bought it in 3 30-acre chunks, and then took those 3 30-acre chunks and put them to 4 each.
Yes.
So without going through anything.
But if it's zoned RR and he met the requirements of
Well,
it.
on that one, I think it's A2.
Yeah, and they're all
So they're all 5 acres. But still, he created a system where he got around our major subdivision requirements. If he had done those 5 lots out of 90, then he would have come under major subdivision regulations. But he purchased it under 330s.
Well, it didn't matter who owned it or who purchased it. I mean, it was just a matter of lots of record or lots of record, and you can create so many splits within a certain period of time.
That was done in less than that 3-year period.
Not as to any single parent parcel. I went back and so that's just my email where I did that, and I traced each, it's hard to do, but doing it the way that Guy told me, Tony told me, and I agree with it, it makes sense. So there are a total of 19 lots that could be produced from the parent parcels within that 3-year period. I think it's 3 years at that time.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And so what we had there were 12 lots platted. What we didn't have the mapping capability to know is whether there were more than 7 parcels split in remainders. But assuming there were no more than 7 parcels into the remainders outside of those 12 lots, then he was within. He complied with the parent parcel splits within the 3-year period.
The only thing we didn't see at the time was we would not, the Board of Commissioners would not have voted on to approve the actual survey of the plan.
Because you only see final plats, preliminary final plats on major subdivisions.
That's right. The only
develop what your threshold is to become a subdivision, to go through subdivision regs, and that's what needs to be looked at through new ordinances, new regs.
Oh, I could do that myself, but then everybody in this room would be screaming at me because I'm making poor old Aunt Bessie go out and jump through all these hoops to get 2 acres.
When Aunt Bessie sells to the right guy, he knows how to manipulate it. It's happening everywhere, yeah.
I don't know how, I don't know how you have that cake and eat it too, but again, I gave you an RFQ, maybe somebody else does.
So as of right now, this is done. But there's nothing we can do about it other than the fact that he will come up to our road standards currently because he didn't start the road prior to.
I don't know that process and when he goes to full building permits. I don't know how your clerk notifies them, there has to be a road there or you have to pay for. I don't know that half of it.
Now, with these all being platted and the moratorium went into place while it was happening, these roads during the moratorium and the time after, they did grow up, but they were already set.
But no, these don't have roads.
No.
This and the ordinance, and this is where there's some confusion too, is your plat, Mike, you make sure I understand this correctly. Your plat can show an easement or access, whatever terminology, to get off of the road. Mm-hmm. But the ordinance you wrote was for the construction of a new private drive. So if it's just grass or cow pasture, and you're going to put gravel down so someone can drive down to get to their home, that is the construction of a new private drive.
I remember we looked at that, and so there's no existing private drives there. So ours, we're just talking about construction standards for when you build it.
Right.
So I think you've got to comply with those.
Right. Okay. And when this individual came into the building, he asked me that. That's what I told him, that it was going to have to be paid.
Correct. Okay. All right, now let me ask a question. If doing the 60-foot right-of-way, which is what I understand it, that is going to change some of these lot sizes.
You'll have to give up more. 30-foot right-of-way here. If you go to 60, you're going to take more.
Right. Which potentially can make some of these lots.
Well, I think the big thing that you got to look at is he played right by the minimum. I think it's 1,300 foot is the maximum English egress easement you could have. 1,500. He's right at the limit on all these little plats. You got to look at choking that down too. How many lots can you use off a 600-foot road that you build? That's 30-foot English egress easement when you got a 10-foot wide road. Passive traffic on it.
Yeah. Can you still do 4 off the private drive?
4 parcels can be accessed off the private drive. Now that doesn't affect how many homes there might be on it if each one had an ADU or something.
Well, yeah.
The 1,500 feet's got to be less. I mean, that's a long road from the private road.
That's a good point. That's a good point. That's something that's
we have the 1,500, and then we also don't have a minimum for what the easement is either.
Well, so like
shared drive and trying to get in.
Most counties are 60 foot. yeah, it's 60 foot, even if it's a landlocked parcel and we're just doing an IE
Yeah.
over it to get to it, it's still 60 foot, because you can't construct a road with 30-foot strip on most properties.
Mine, my draft note's
Yeah.
50, but if you think 60 is better, I need to take that into
I mean,
consideration.
it depends on what your county road reg is. If you got a 50-foot county road reg, then it'd be different.
No, it's 60.
If it's 60, just make it easy.
Well, just, in my mind, it just, I mean, I'll just call it sins of the past. You know, some things happen, you know, intent is one thing, you know, desire is one thing. What's codified and we can back up legally is different, and we got the issues are, I mean, I need to go back and double check and offer my comments. I've not done that yet, but we need to get to a point where we get this off the back burner up front so we can, I agree, I think there's a lot of stuff that's, we've talked about some things that probably wouldn't happen now, but we just gotta get to a conversation point that we stop the anchor in the water and do it.
Okay, that's it.
Y'all can see we need everybody's help on this, and I think Todd, somebody made a point. People change, and this gotta be defined in such a way that whoever is sitting in which chair, the right thing occurs.
How do we catch these that are in process that's going on right now? I mean, we identified this particular one, but, I mean, we've got other private drives being constructed with multiple homes on, is it like a CO? I mean, at what point do we make sure that the private drive meets the conditions that were put onto it when it was approved? Specifically,
I think that would be when they go to pull a building permit, they have to provide a plat. Would that not be when that?
Unless it's old as a deed, but yes, they have to have a plat, and, unless it's commercial, though, they don't have to have a site plan. We don't know what the driveway is or what's being connected until we get there.
And like on that day, for a building permit, would you verify there's a road and get to the lot?
Yeah.
And it had to have time on one basis.
Well, at the end of the day, and other, where there are other authorities having jurisdiction over this, the road's gonna go in first.
Yes, no doubt.
The road has to be there before anything else is done. And if we were to pursue it that way, and the road had to be built to a standard, I think we would find that some people would determine that it's not worth what they would make off the property.
There are not many counties that I can do a 1,500-foot road with 30-foot wide.
Absolutely.
I mean,
But that's because they won't let you do a 1,500-foot private drive.
Right.
It's
I've
gonna be a public road.
60-foot road, we've done subdivisions where there's ownership with that easement and responsibilities, but never just an undefined road, which y'all have had issues where people come in and say, who's supposed to maintain my road?
Right.
You know, I mean, that has to be done before the MSP is approved, and, you know, where's your, maintenance agreement for your driveway, it's the final plan.
You're talking about going to a development permit process.
So, I mean, yeah, who's gonna do the inspections?
That would be, I mean, that's what we need to accomplish what we're talking about. It's gonna be a big change, a lot more people involved.
Yep. So quickly, I'd like to go around the room because we've asked a lot of you. You've heard a lot of information today. I'm gonna take 3 minutes and say, Lamar, do you got anything you'd like to add, take away from today?
I probably have the easiest job of anybody in the room. I just send the bills out and collect them. But I do have to talk to a lot of taxpayers who come in and ask me stuff because I see more than about anybody does. So the more we can do to get us all on the same page and have uniform ordinances on all that stuff, the better it's gonna be. Because I mean, I get people every week come in and say, we're fixing to breach this parcel, how much is the conservation gonna cost us, or we're fixing to sell this piece of land, you give us an estimated tax bill, and I would like to be able to say, before you do that, you need to look at this right here, to know what you're getting yourself into. But I'm good, you know, y'all just load the wagon, the music is already hitched up.
Katie? Good. Robin?
I'm good.
P&Z? William? Good.
please pay attention to the RFQ. We're only as good as what we got written. And we've got to have a computer system where we can internally pay attention to what has happened to a parcel in the past.
Well, we have that working.
I agree.
We have that working, and turns out we have the right people to do it already on staff. We just gotta coordinate it to get it done. Lacey Becker, first off, thank you very much. This was a lot, and this was a lot done by you. I know you bounced it off us, and we give input, but you nailed that presentation. Thank you. Christopher?
No, other questions that, the board has put out there, we can talk later or email chain to get those answers out, for the time and everything. The communication, I think that was understood between Robin and Mike getting it out, I think will help in the future, catching some of these that may slip through, but we're catching every one that we can when they come to that building process.
Yeah, it sounds like this form is helping a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But that is already in place.
Oh, yes, sir.
There is one thing I would suggest on the form.
Yes, sir.
We need to put either the date it was established or the date it was revised down at the bottom of it, so that in our conversation, we don't come up and say, oh, it was in January, or maybe it was March, or it could have been in June. And if we could do that, just in a small thought, I think that down the road, it's gonna help us, because when we run into a situation like this, where we have a developer who doesn't do anything, please understand, he's not done anything illegal, but they understand how to manipulate the system that we have in place right now. With that on that document, it will give us a referral point to say, no, you can't do that because this was in place at that time.
Yes. Just for the record, I do have it as the saved copies, and I'm sure Christina does, with the title, the date that we finalized it. It's just not on here, but we can fit it on there.
What does, Christopher,
Sir?
does planning and zoning have policies and procedures? They have their own policies and procedures, right? For anything.
Oh, yeah.
So then you could, what we do is we'll take it to the board, or you can take it to your planning and zoning board, have them adopt that as one of your policies.
Yeah, we can adopt it.
And then it would.
It would just be a document inside of our zoning.
Route sheet, what we're gonna call a route sheet, in my opinion, and a sign indication.
Yeah.
Or plat number, something to that, so there's a way for the professional to track it and for the people to track it. And the only other thing I'll say is there's not many counties I can walk into, guys, and get a plat signed right now. Yeah. These ladies, they're constant. There's not many places I can walk into to get a building permit, or even talk to the person and get the answers about the building permit. Usually it's I got to come back, or I've got to go through an online portal. This is a very easy process here, but your employees are exposed to get a lot of production done, write regulations, look at a lot of stuff. The amount of traffic they have coming in is not what I see at other planning departments. It's a little bit more guarded, screened, I guess, to get to the people to do this stuff. Yeah.
Can I make 2 comments on the form while we're talking about it? One, just everybody remember, the forms, policies, procedures, those are law. They're not ordinance or law. They're just administrative tools to help us enforce ordinances and laws. Secondly, I would suggest getting rid of and or at the top of this thing, because that kind of implies there's a way to combine and divide other than a plat, and there's not.
Roger that.
And just like Gary said about the routing sheet, that should be developed as, I'm assuming that there'll be a different one that everybody checks off on and determine. Well, that's kind of what they have now. Yeah, but I mean, as far as who's signing off on it, and if there's other departments that we need to have.
Well, but that's the best. That reflects the only requirements we have right now. Mm-hmm. We need a new set. We need a new.
So we need the RFQ before we do.
Yes, we need to certify the
back it up with regulations. We've been talking about it so much. I'm ready to be. I'm ready to do an RFQ.
William, what you got, buddy?
Could there be some way that we could educate the citizens of Madison County, like when they go have the land split off, this is what you need to do first, instead of just bringing the deed in and we go through all that department head. There's some way we should be able to
We may need to put an ad in the paper, an article in the paper stating the steps that we would like to see. I don't know that.
A lot of municipalities will have a how-to guide for each thing they've got.
Yeah, it's on the county website. Yeah, oh, we can. How about you, Lee?
No questions on the process. I'm just waiting on the appropriate time to tackle. And these are gonna give us problems down the road. Private drives, private drives, accessory dwelling units, easements, creating or letting people split off parcels that are landlocked, and then we've got easements to deal with to get to them. So those are just causing problems down the road if we don't get control of ADUs and things like that.
What we saw in what we called a retreat with the Board of Commissioners with certain people in the room, I think that worked well. I think we're gonna, in order to be able to tackle those, we have to do it like we did today. These ain't business meetings or agenda meetings for Board of Commissioners nor P&Z. I think we first got to get direction. I'm going to tell you that more than likely in 30 to 45 days, we're going to come back and do the same thing, different topic. That's the only way we're going to get this worked out. Stephanie?
I was just about to say the same thing. This needs, until things get straightened out here, if not quarterly, at least to just, no more email chains. It's hard to follow this. We just need to get into a room and hash it out and move on to the next one.
What do you think back there, sir? Mr. McKay? Gary, we are...
It is what it is.
It is what it is. Unfortunately, we have inherited what it is.
It's like you said, it's been going on for 40 years or more.
Well, Gary Harbin, I want to be at the next, 45 days away from meeting. He sat in my office and talked to me, and I think Robin and a couple others, good ideas to put us into 2023, getting a updated digital file of what we have. I think he was part of that, and we have the GIS.
Right now, we have so many cases coming in. These cases can be archived and tagged as an attribute to a parcel. If there was a better time to start, it would have been when we started, the moratorium was lifted, and then the paper trail's digital to where any public citizen can click on their parcel and see what's associated with it as far as any type of, if he had a right-of-way deed on it 20 years ago, can't retroactively go back and fix all problems. We need to start looking at getting it digitally archived going forward.
And we are getting, so we can do that, right? We're working it.
Y'all have a gentleman here that Owen fellow, he's the guy for the job. It's hard to get a guy that has that much talent, yeah.
The problem we fall short on from either my job, Christina's, or Board of Commissioners, anybody else's, it's not what we do every day. That's why Gary